Hey guys, welcome to my NBA 2K19 top 10 teams to rebuild after the trade deadline going into the offseason for 2019. I had posted a list like this earlier on my Operation Sports slider thread for the preseason going into the new season here, and I was requested to make an updated list. I thought it'd be fun to make a video, and then I was confronted with the idea to do some rebuild videos. They're very popular on YouTube, and I thought, hey, why don't I do that with my league settings? The trade sliders are different, the contract negotiation sliders are different, and let's try it with my slider settings. So I'm actually going to take the top 10 teams I list here. I'm going to go in order. I'm going to do a rebuild video and come up with what I can do and what I can make the best of as far as a rebuild with each one of these teams. So watch the video. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you like the video that's to come with the top 10 teams. But let's get it off with number 10, all right? All right, at number 10, we have the Atlanta Hawks. They have the best situation of the 10 teams that I felt were worthy of this designation, and I'll go ahead and explain to you why real quick. So starting off, salary cap space going into the offseason, 2K says they're going to have 75 million, but you need to assume Kent Bazemore is going to pick up his basically $20 million option. So you're going to assume he's got about $56.5 million in cap room, which is still pretty good if you're the Atlanta Hawks. All right, you do have 3 first-round draft picks and 3 second-round draft picks. So you have plenty of picks to help fill out your roster. You have enough cap room to go ahead and sign a max player if you can. Um, Outside of that, your team, you don't really have a lot of talent outside of maybe Trey Young and John Collins. So you have options, with what you want to do. But you can definitely get a good start with your picks and the cap space on building this into a young, talented team that has room to grow for many years to come. All right, at number 9, we got the Sacramento Kings. They're number 9 because they have a pretty solid starting 5, depending on how you feel about Harrison Barnes. 2K does say that they're going to have around $61 million in salary cap space in the offseason. However, you have to assume Harrison Barnes is going to accept his $25 million player option, so it's going to be roughly more like 36.5. That is good enough, of course, to get you a max player. But with 4 players leaving in free agency, including Willie Cauley-Stein, which you can choose to bring back or not, and you have 3 second-round picks to fill out your roster, you can choose to either go after a big-name player or maybe just build your bench, because really the bench is where this team is lacking talent. Their starting 5 is not bad at all. All right, number 8, the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns have an interesting situation as they have 2 bona fide superstars on their roster in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. They're right on the cusp, especially Booker. The issue is where's the depth? They need a point guard, they need some depth. So here's their salary cap situation. 2K says it's 41.25 going into the offseason. Not true. Tyler Johnson's absolutely going to accept his player option of 19.25 million. So unless you move that contract, you're going to really expect to have around 29.25 million in cap space. Sounds good, but here's the issue. You have about 7 players leaving that you're going to need to fill with the roster spots, and you only have a first-round pick and a second-round pick in 2019, so you can really only fill those spots with picks. So you're still going to have 5 players left at 30 million. You really need to go ahead and try to get a balanced roster, get a point guard, get a shooting guard or a small forward, excuse me. You already have a shooting guard, but you know what I mean. Get some bench with this team, and it could be kind of challenging given the lack of cap space. All right, number 7, the Memphis Grizzlies. You knew they'd be on here. They got Chandler Parsons on their roster making 25 million. They have to be on here, right? Let's go ahead and take a look why they're on here. So Memphis Grizzlies are an interesting situation. It says they're going to have about $27 million in cap space, but I think it's going to be a little bit different. I do believe Valanciunas is going to absolutely opt out. I think he's worth more than that, and you as a user should absolutely decline Avery Bradley's $12 million option. I do think, however, that CJ Miles will accept his player option of 8.73. So I'd say with the Grizzlies, you're going to have roughly 20 million in cap space. Not bad, not great, especially when you have 6 players that are going to be leaving your roster that you have to fill, and you only have 1 draft pick in 2019, and it's a second rounder. So again, you need to try to move Chandler Parsons, but You don't really have any assets to pair with Chandler Parsons, so it's going to be very difficult to get more cap space with this team unless you give up some future picks, which again can really negate the rebuilding process. So several ways you can go here, but it's going to be difficult to get some extra talent on this roster given the current cap situation. All right, at number 6 on the list, the Minnesota Timberwolves. This might be as a surprise to some of you because you think Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins. How could they be number 6? Well, let me show you why. Is because outside of those two guys, they don't have much going for them going forward in real life and in 2K. All right, so 2K says they're going to have roughly 12.5 million in salary cap room. Jeff Teague is more than likely going to accept his $19 million player option, which means you're really going to be over the cap by about $7.5 million. That really sucks when you got 6 players that are leaving in free agency that you got to somehow bring back on basically no budget. You only have one draft pick in 2019, and it's only a second rounder. You lose Derrick Rose, who's having an amazing year, NBA Comeback Player of the Year, probably. So, how do you get better when you're spitting out $27.5 million to Andrew Wiggins, who at this point doesn't seem worth it? And of course, Karl Anthony Towns is absolutely worth every penny. The problem is Gorgie Jang is eating up too much money, and outside of that, Robert Covington's a pretty decent contract. So going forward, going in 2019, really tough to make the Minnesota Timberwolves better than they already are. If anything, you're actually going to become a worse team. All right, we're halfway through the video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button. All right, I'd love to get as many subscribers as I can. Please, if you're enjoying the video, like the video and go ahead, give me some comments. Let me know what you think. Did I get the top 5 right? What would you change? What did you like? And yeah, that's about everything. So sticking with the script here, number 5 is Orlando Magic. The reason Magic are number 5 is I was kind of torn because part of me wanted to put them higher, part of me wanted to put them lower. I ended up sticking them right in the middle because they have a really interesting situation where, and you'll find out why. Basically, they're going to have about 25 million in salary cap room in the offseason 2019. They have 5 players that they're going to need to replace or bring back. They do have their 2019 first round pick and second round picks. There's 2 picks to help them out there. Here's the issue with the Magic and their salary cap space. Nikola Vucevic is going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's one of the best centers in the game. He's going to demand more money than that. So you're going to have to go over the cap to bring him back. Absolutely worth it. Terrence Ross is another one. But then after that, though, you really struggle. How are you going to make this roster better? So you're really maintaining it, but how do you get better? You really need to get rid of Mozgov and Markelle Fultz. Those two are combined for $26 million, and neither of them are going to play on this team. If you look at the 2K roster, you're not going to play either of them. You need a point guard. You need to upgrade your bench a little bit. That $26 million from Mozgov and Markelle Fultz would really go in handy in the offseason to help boost your bench. How do you get there? How do you do it? What do you have to give up? It's up to you to find out. All right, might be our second surprise team on this list, the New Orleans Pelicans. This has nothing to do with the real world issues with Anthony Davis. This has everything to do with 2K realism here. What's really going on with the Pelicans looking forward here. And 2K says they're going to have roughly $28 million in cap space, and yeah, that looks about right. Julius Randle's going to opt out. He's worth more than $9 million. He's proved that this year. Here's the problem. What are you going to do with $28 million to improve this roster when you have 8 players leaving that you need to put on this roster, and you only have your first round pick and second round pick for 2019 to help you out with that roster spot. So when you have that many players with that little salary cap room, you're not going to really improve anything. And when Solomon Hill and Etuan Moore are eating up $20 million of your cap space, again, you're not going to get a chance to improve this roster. You're really only going to be able to maintain it, and that's an issue because you need to be able to improve this roster outside of Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis, and I just don't see how you're going to do it without giving up some future picks or getting lucky in the draft. So a very challenging situation with the New Orleans Pelicans. All right, we finally cracked the top three. It's new Charlotte Hornets. All right, Charlotte Hornets, very tough situation. All of these final three are going to be really, really tough. Two cases are going to have roughly $53.5 million in cap space. But you have to look at underneath all that, again, like we've been doing. Bismack Biyombo is a $17 million player option. Of course he's accepting it. Marvin Williams is a $15 million player option. Yes, he's going to accept that. And Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is going to have a $13 million player option that he is absolutely more than likely going to accept. When you do all that, then the Charlotte Hornets have roughly $8.5 million in cap space. Oh yeah, and who becomes a free agent this year? Kemba Walker. He's going to want more than $8.5 million. Don't get me wrong. So the good news is the three players that are walking away in free agency or can become free agents are all players that you have bird rights for in Kemba Walker, Jeremy Lamb, and Frank Kaminsky. So you can go over the cap to bring them all back. And that's what you're going to have to do to keep this roster intact and to also make sure that you can re-sign talented players. The problem is that with your 2019 first round pick and your 2 second round picks, chances are you're really not going to add a lot of depth or improve much on this roster with some of these bad contracts that are holding you back, like Batum, Biyombo, and Zeller. And so, really, again, like the trend's been going for these last couple teams, you're able to maintain the talent on the roster, but you're not really able to improve the roster, and thus kind of makes it the rebuild difficult. So, again, this is a very challenging situation here in Charlotte. And then there were two. The Detroit Pistons. I don't know how many of you thought that you'd see them on this list, but they're absolutely deserving of being on this list, and they are deserving of the number 2 spot. And you could almost make an argument for them to be the number 1 spot here, but for now they're number 2. Tell you why. They are going to have no cap space going into the offseason in 2019. They are going to be over the salary cap by $9 million. The problem is Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and Reggie Jackson eat up all of their cap space. And there's just really nothing you can do to get extra cap space. There's not a horrible contract on here really. Uh, it's just those guys eat up all the cap space. And so yeah, you got your 2019 first round pick, you got your second round pick to maybe help get some depth. But when your starting two guard is Langston Galloway as a 71, your starting three is Glenn Robinson as a 73 overall, that's a problem. Okay, you need to have better wings than that. And then if those are your starters, what's your bench looking like? Okay, so with the Detroit Pistons, it's really a struggling situation because given your luxury tax situation, in order to even have opportunities to improve the roster, you're going to have to tear it down by either trading Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond, or just wait it out till you get rid of John Lure and some of these guys and Reggie Jackson and hit on some draft picks and maybe look ahead to 2020. But as far as doing anything for 2019, it's going to be a very difficult challenge to get a more balanced, well-rounded roster with this team. And we all knew they were going to be number 1. Cleveland Cavaliers. They were number 1 in my preseason rankings, and they did nothing to improve their situation. In my opinion, yeah, they got some future picks for 2021, yada, yada, yada. What about right now? What about 2019? Well, let's take a look. Going through into the offseason 2019, they are going to be over the salary cap still, $16.5 million. As a user, I absolutely hope you decline J.R. Smith's team option. All right. The problem is they got some nasty contracts here. They're all expiring, which is great, but going into the 2019 offseason, unless you're able to move some of these players, it's going to be very difficult. And unfortunately for the Cavs, their draft situation in 2019 isn't very friendly. They only have one first-round pick, and it belongs to the Rockets, so it's going to be a late first-round pick. It's not even going to be a good one. There are no second-round picks to help fill out the roster, and they're going to have 4 players that become free agents that need to be brought back. So where and how that's going to be done, it's going to be extremely challenging. There's really no way to improve this roster without trading future assets such as draft picks, pairing them up with bad contracts to get some free agents. And again, you don't know how that's going to play out. So that's my number 1 most challenging team to rebuild is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Please go ahead, let me know. Did I get this right? Do you like my top 5? What would you change? What did you like about my list? And hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Peace.